Thank you very much. So I'm very excited to be here at Sustainable Brands. And what I want to talk to you about is this very concept of garbage and how you can really think about it a little bit differently. Now, TerraCycle started 11 years ago, and we opened our operation here in Brazil in 2008, and now operate in 26 countries around the world. In fact, just recently launching last week in Japan. Now, our entire question, many times there's conversations around, what recycling solution will solve what, and how do we solve all this complicated waste that we have. But I think the real question we have to ask is, what really is garbage, and why does it exist? And you'll notice that it doesn't exist at all in nature. It only exists in the human system. And it exists in our system because of two things that have come together in the past 100 years, really. One is that our products are made from incredibly complex materials. Look around the room today and think about the chair you're sitting on. It's all synthetic. Think about the shoes you're wearing, all synthetic. Probably 20% of the clothing you're wearing is all synthetic. And that's just what's in here. Sit in the car. Everything is made from plastic and other complicated materials which nature doesn't know what to do with. Then you compound that issue by adding the idea of consumption. If you look at a human being alive today, anywhere in the world, doesn't have to be in America or Brazil, anywhere, and then you compare them to a human being around 100 years ago, today we consume 10 times more stuff than we did 100 years ago. And 100 years ago, we had to eat. We had to still have clothing. So everything we consume today, that extra 9x increase in consumption, is stuff that we buy because we want to make ourselves feel good, not because we have to have it. And when you compound those two things together, that is what equals garbage. It's a very big problem. It's 5 billion tons a year still today, of which 25% still end up in our oceans. Globally, 25% in our oceans, 5% globally is our recycling rate, which leaves 70% going into two solutions. Either we burn it, which is very popular in countries that are wealthy with high populations and low land masses like Japan, Germany, Sweden, and so on. And if not, we bury it. And we do that not because we don't want to do these things, it's because it's very complicated to manage these materials, especially because there's so many different types of materials. Now, the real answer to garbage isn't TerraCycle, it's not any other recycling company, it's not a law, it's none of that. It's us choosing to purchase things differently. Because the way we purchase is what creates garbage to begin with. And if you want to take the first step on purchasing differently, the first thing to do is you have to buy consciously. That doesn't mean you have to know all the details of a product. That's way too complicated. But at least be aware that everything you buy, by definition, one day will become waste. So think about things in the packaging you buy. Then if you want to go the next layer, consider buying durable instead of disposable, because then you don't have to keep buying that pen or that lighter over and over. If you are going to buy durable, you can, of course, find that durable object used on many platforms. And the very best thing to do, and the real answer to garbage, is the hardest thing of all. Just stop buying altogether. Now, I want to talk about garbage from a positive light. That was all the negative information on garbage. Now, all around the world, and today, as I mentioned, we operate in 26 countries, but I've had a chance to visit about half the countries in the world and see their recycling infrastructures. And in every country in the world, there is some level of recycling. Brazil's actually quite strong from that point of view. But what has always surprised me is that what is recyclable, doesn't matter if it's here in Brazil or in Germany or in the US or Canada, is always the same 5 things. It's paper, glass, aluminum, rigid PET, which is number 1 plastic, and rigid HDPE, which is number 2 plastic. And then everything else, 80% of all the objects we buy end up either being burned or buried. So why are those things recyclable and everything else isn't? I can tell you it has nothing to do with the technical capacity of the waste. It has everything to do with economics. The reason an aluminum can here in Brazil is recycled, and not just recycled, but recycled at a very high percentage, is because aluminum is valuable. The cost of collecting it and the cost of processing it is less than the value of the aluminum. But the reason a toothbrush is not recycled, not just here in Brazil, but anywhere in the world, is because the cost of collecting a toothbrush and the cost of processing a toothbrush is more than the value of toothbrush plastic. And the same goes for diapers, cigarettes, and 80% of all the objects that exist. It's only about money. That's it. So how do we look at waste positively? I would argue that waste is really made from 3 things. One is the material it's made from. So this bottle here is made from probably PET. But it's not just PET in my hand. It also looks like a bottle. So it's the composition and the features, and both the material and the shape took money to create. But it's the third thing as well. The reason this bottle exists is to hold a beverage, a cold beverage. It wouldn't hold a hot beverage. It wouldn't hold anything else. It's really made for that. When you look at waste in those three ways, you can unlock circular solutions. And there are, in total, 5 solutions to garbage that exist today. The worst thing to do from the very bottom is put it in a pile, put it in a landfill. I think we'd all agree that that's negative and creates no value. The next step is burning the waste. Now, there's 2 forms of burning. If you look at all the incineration facilities around the world, 90% simply burn and destroy the waste. That's almost the same as landfill, but better because there is no landfill left over. And 10% of the incineration facilities around the world are called waste-to-energy facilities, where there is some amount of energy recovered. The challenge with waste-to-energy is the things that create the most energy are the things that are the most recyclable, such as plastics. Now, those 2 are linear solutions. You can only do them once. In circular solutions, there are 3. And I'm going to go from the very best to the very and down from an environmental point of view. The very best is the idea of reuse. That's where you value all 3 aspects of the waste: the material, the features, the intention. That's really big in electronics, cell phones, computers, where you can refurbish them. It's also very big in clothing. All around the world for many years, people have donated clothing to churches and other organizations to refurbish. But here's a few examples of reuse that you may not think are so normal. For now 10 years, or actually 11 years, we've been doing this with Pepsi in Canada and the US, which is direct reuse of their soda bottle. You'll notice that this fertilizer that's shown, the bottle is an old Pepsi bottle and it's never been melted. Now, it may seem that this is done in very small scale, but you can buy this at Walmart, at Home Depot, many major retailers for over a decade today. And it doesn't just go there. Here's more examples of refilling soda bottles. The middle product is a bird feeder. It's just an upside-down 2-liter soda bottle, but was also the best-selling soda bottle in the United States for 2 years in a row, in 2004 and 2005. Or here's an example with Unilever, where we took 35 million used margarine packages. And we found that a margarine package is the exact same specification as a planting pot. In fact, it's actually the same company who makes them. One is white, one is black. It's the only difference. So we put a hole in the bottom, and this is how 35 million plants were packaged in Walmart. That is a photo in store showing now packaging and reused waste. Now, reuse is only good for 1% of the garbage that is out there because it's limited. The next step is where you value the materials and the features, but not the intention of the waste. That's called upcycling. Pet food packaging was never intended to be pet products, or corks into cork boards, or circuit boards into picture frames, or vinyl records into bowls and post office bags, or confectionery packaging into bags and kites, and granola packaging into shower curtains, speakers, stationery products, even pens from old toothbrushes. Now, you may think this is a joke. These all seem really fun and small, but 2 million pens of these were made last year for Colgate here in Brazil and in 9 other countries around the world. Whether it's movie film, soccer balls, even shoes. Now, the way TerraCycle does this is we work with major companies like here Timberland, and we show them how they can replace the base of their shoe with used wine corks, and how 20% of the leather can be replaced, in this case, with used flexible packaging. Upcycling is fun, but it's limited to only 4% of the waste that is collected because not everyone wants to walk around with a Starbucks logo on their feet. This is actually a very big product for us in Japan. There, they really like it, but in other countries, it's not quite the same. Now, upcycling can also be fun. Here's examples of dresses that we've made. The one closest to me here is made from 6,000 used peanut M&M wrappers that's in the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And let's just say the one there was a lot of hard work to put together. Even offices. We today operate in 26 countries around the world, and every office around the world has a design rule where every aspect of the office must be made from garbage. Not only is it really inspiring, as you can see from the photos, here is in the US, here is in Germany, or Canada, or even in Sao Paulo, the TerraCycle offices, or in London. But it's the cheapest way to build an office. Way cheaper than just gray cubicles that litter most of the office space today around the world. Now, upcycling, as I mentioned, is 4% of all the garbage that we collect can go into that route. 1% is reuse. So where does the majority of the garbage go is what we call recycling. But it's not, that's where you value the material of an object. But everything I'm going to show you is recycling things that typically cannot be recycled in a normal government system because they lose money in the process, not make money like aluminum. So here's an example of a toy you may know, Mr. Potato Head, made by Hasbro, but he's made entirely from used potato chip bags through our partnership with Pepsi and Frito-Lay in the US. All these objects, things, for example, like aluminumized waste, which is juice pouches or toothpaste tubes, people thought could never be injection molded, never be extrusion molded, and here they are. The trick to it is, of course, science, but also coherent collection. The reason we have such trouble with our waste today, the reason we burn it or bury it, is because it's complicated. Think about our closest relative if you believe in evolution, say a chimpanzee. Say he's sitting here eating his banana. He has 3 types of outputs. Notice I'm not going to call them waste, but he has 3 types of outputs. He has the carbon dioxide he exhales when he breathes. If he's eating a banana, he may have to go to the bathroom, so he has what he puts in the toilet, if he's a good monkey. And then the third aspect is he may have hair or nails or other body parts, and one day the body itself when he dies. Now, we have those 3 things too. We breathe, we use a toilet, we cut our hair, and so on. But human beings, in addition to those 3 outputs, have 300 unique categories of waste. In total, 300. And a category is as broad as cosmetics, which in itself is very complicated. So the trick is collecting coherent waste. It's the only way to create circular solutions for every type of waste that exists. Now, solutions can be fun, and what we really try to look at with our corporate partners is how do we get them to take the waste back into their system? Step 1 is for a corporation to take responsibility over their waste. Step 2, though, is how does the organization integrate that waste back into their system and create circular solutions? Now, the easiest way to create circular solutions is when you don't have to involve operations at the beginning, because operations takes time to adapt to change. So here's examples of various circular solutions. These are, for example, gardens that we've built with L'Oreal in many countries around the world made entirely from cosmetic waste, or even playgrounds that are made entirely from used flip-flops. These have been done in the hundreds. But the next step, which is even more exciting, is when this closed-loop solutions become even tighter into the system. The pen you see on this photo is the world's first pen made 90% from used pens. You will see next year the world's first cosmetic package made entirely from used cosmetic packages, the world's first oral care package made entirely from used oral care waste, with the world's biggest companies in the process. And if you think, how far can this go? In February, with our partnership with Frito-Lay, we created the first 5 trucks that are made 40% from used chip bags. Every plastic item has been replaced with used chip bags, except in the engine, there's thermodynamic components, which is a little bit harder to do. But the entire wall, the steering wheel, everything is now used potato chip bags. So if you can do it for a truck, you can definitely do it for something simple, like a cap for laundry detergent. I've hopefully shown you that solving waste can be done. The challenge, though, isn't the solution. I mean, it is a challenge, but it's not the challenge. The challenge is collection. We like to mix everything together and put it into a big pile, and it makes it very difficult to do anything with. Separating out mixed garbage is never going to be economical until oil prices go 10 times higher than they are today. The idea of mining a landfill, except for burning it, will not be a reality until raw materials disappear, because it's so complex. So TerraCycle has invented many different ways to collect waste, in total about 15 different models. This first model, I'm not going to show you them all, but just to give you a little taste, is what works here in Brazil as well. You go to terracycle.com.br, you'll see a whole range of waste streams. You simply sign up, fill up a box with that category of waste, download a Correio shipping label, and send it to one of our warehouses in Brazil. And then you even get a donation for everything you send. And here's what it looks like. Today, there's 150,000 schools across the world participating in this program. In total, 60 million people. Here in Brazil, 700,000 people already do this. People then go and make really interesting collection devices, and then the teachers sometimes go totally crazy and dress like garbage, teaching people that you can do something different with waste. Now, there's other models as well that can work. And it's the answer to garbage is not one answer, but a blend of answers. Here in Brazil, whether you can look at collecting with cooperatives or in front of stores. Here's an example that we do in stores now at 70,000 stores around the world, where we give different collection systems. The stores can then collect in front of their location and send it in. And there's a whole range of other collection methods that we've deployed as well. This is a way for organizations like these, this is about half of our partners, to be able to take voluntary responsibility over their waste. Not legal mandated responsibility like a law does, but voluntary responsibility, and be able to create solutions that create equity value and increase their market share. Now, TerraCycle operates, as I mentioned, in 26 countries around the world, but one thing very special about Brazil is Brazil was the first foreign country we opened. After the United States, our first office outside the US was in Sao Paulo for Brazil, and then later Canada and the UK. But we really think there's something special here. Unlike, Latin America is a very, very strong market. But Brazil has something very special going on from an environmental point of view. The way that you have treated people who are waste pickers is very different than how other countries have done so. I think it's really inspiring. I want to leave you with one last point. Any type of garbage can be solved, not just things that may seem simple, like a pen or a toothbrush or a chip bag or a juice pouch. In 2012, we launched national solutions for 3 very difficult types of garbage. Used chewing gum, which is actually not a food, it's a polymer, so you can injection mold it at 30% into plastics, and it still smells like gum. Dirty diapers is something that we are now doing with Kimberly-Clark in the United States, where we we take the diaper, we radiate it through gamma radiation, which sterilizes it, separate the things that can be composted, which is the cellulosic material inside a diaper and the superabsorbent polymer, this SAP crystal, which absorbs urine, and the polyethylene and polypropylene is melted into a bench. But I want to focus on the middle one. Is there anyone here from the tobacco industry in the room? Can you please raise your hand? That's the point. Tobacco is one of the largest consumer product fields. It's tens of billions of dollars. Cigarettes are also the most littered waste stream on the planet. 37% of all cigarettes end up on the street. That's 4.5 trillion cigarettes per year end up on the streets. And the big challenge in sustainability is that for some companies, it's an easy step. But for some companies, it's a very difficult step because they feel like they have to always hide in the shadows. Cigarettes is the best example of someone that you probably would never see in a room like this because they don't know how to begin the conversation around sustainability. In 2012, we created a recycling solution, the first one ever in Canada nationally for used cigarette waste. The way we do it is we collect the used cigarettes. Today, 1 million cigarettes every 2 days. We shred them, separate them into 2 pieces, the organics, which is the ash, tobacco, and paper, which is then composted, and the inorganic, which is the filter, which is made from cellulose acetate. Cellulose acetate is the same thing that make your sunglass frames. It's not biodegradable. People many times think, oh, don't worry, I put the cigarette on the floor, it will biodegrade at some point. It is not. It's a durable plastic like anything else. And you can take that filter and melt it into an injection moldable product, such as you can see here, plastic pallets. So today, only after launching this a year and a half ago, cigarette recycling now exists in 9 countries around the world. Here it is in Madrid and all across Spain, or in Hungary. This one is with Philip Morris. Or even in France, this is in Le Défense, you can now recycle your cigarettes. Today in Canada, in the US, in Sweden, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Hungary, France, and just 5 days ago, starting in Japan, you can now nationally recycle your cigarettes. But what I think is really fun about these actions when people take voluntary responsibility over waste is how it can move from there. So we came up with this fun idea. We call it the butt sack. It's really just more of a promotional idea where it's an aluminum pouch that you can put your cigarettes into when you're done smoking. And there's a shipping label printed on it, so when you put it in the mail, it comes to us and is recycled. Now that's fun, and there have been millions of these given away at car racing events and other things. But what I really enjoy about my job is when large organizations, especially conservative ones, make real changes. So one of our partners, and we work with Philip Morris, British American Tobacco, R.J. Reynolds, JTI, and so on, all the large tobacco conglomerates, one of them, I can't tell you which one, has agreed that in 2015, 1 billion cigarette packages per year will change to look like this. It's already in production. The idea is that you put the cigarette in the bottom of the package where there's already one of these butt sacks integrated into it. And when you're done, you peel the label off where there's the dying person and the warnings, and you peel it off and you rotate it around, and then there's a shipping label, and you put it in the mail, or in the post, and the entire cigarette becomes recycled. In fact, the post office becomes the garbage bin. And so hopefully, you can see how at least TerraCycle tries to make things that are non-recyclable, recyclable, taking us one step closer to eliminating the idea of waste. Thank you.